Hello, dear friends. Today is June 23rd, 2026, and this is another review of the combat situation map. Before we move to the front, a small but important request. Military analysis on YouTube is constantly subject to algorithmic restrictions. The platform suppresses the reach of this kind of content and doesn't always deliver it even to subscribers. So if you want to keep getting these daily briefings, please subscribe to the channel and be sure to hit the bell. That way you have a far better chance of seeing each new video on time. This simple action genuinely helps the channel grow. And one more point before the breakdown. Even when there's progress at the front and the Russian army takes cities like Konstantinovka or Lyman, that alone doesn't settle anything. The reason is simple. The outcome of fighting on the ground doesn't stop the exchange of long-range strikes. Missile and drone attacks on rear areas continue from both sides, regardless of where the front line stands, all the more so as the range of these weapons keeps growing. That's worth keeping in mind when assessing what map progress actually means. Now, onto the sectors, moving from south to north. Zaporizhzhia direction. We'll start with Primorske. According to objective control footage, positional fighting is underway near Kamyanske. AFU positions in the residential area of Primorske came under fire from Russian forces. An expansion of the AFU zone of control along the shore of the dried-up Kakhovka reservoir by more than 1.5 kilometers is being reported. Separately, Stepnohirsk. Here I have a direct discrepancy in the data, and I'll flag it honestly rather than force it into one version. Stepnohirsk. Some material indicates the Russian army managed to gain a foothold in the settlement and even returned Tavriska Street and part of Centralna Street to its control, meaning the settlement hasn't been definitively lost. Fighting continues, and the worst-case scenario of being pushed back across the river didn't materialize. Other material from the same period claims the opposite, that the AFU recovered previously lost positions, expanded their zone of control by more than 1 kilometer, and currently hold Stepnohirsk in full. The versions are incompatible, your call on which to treat as the baseline. Until either version is confirmed by video, I wouldn't put changes on the map. There's also a nearby sector that may lie in a grey zone, controlled by neither side. Orikhiv direction, south of Orikhiv, changes near Novodanilivka. A forward Russian position there came under an AFU drone strike, but Russian forces are holding the settlement and expanding their zone of control in the southern part by roughly 700 meters. Objective control footage confirms a Russian presence at several points in the south of Novodanilivka. Along the rest of the sector, there have been no significant changes recently. Huliaipol direction. Reports indicate Russian forces are straightening the front line between Bilohiria and Vozdvizhivka. Leveling is taking place along this entire line of contact. No serious changes have been recorded here over the past week. Dnipropetrovsk direction, border security zone. Along the line between Dobropilya and Solodke, Russian forces engaged an AFU infiltration group. Ukrainian troops had pushed about 3 kilometers deep into the zone of control along the line of contact. In Verbov, Russian forces are holding positions under enemy fire, with the zone of control being refined. A Russian presence here has already been confirmed by footage on multiple occasions. In Kalinivska, a Russian position came under fire from the AFU, but Russian forces continue to hold the settlement's residential area. Dobropilya direction, east of Novolexandrivka, Russian forces are expanding their zone of control to roughly 2 kilometers along the line of contact. A Russian serviceman there came under AFU fire as well. South of Shevchenko, a Russian observation post was shelled by the AFU. Along a tree line, Russian forces are advancing toward Shevchenko, widening the zone of control to 2 kilometers. In Belitske, by contrast, the Ukrainian army is making progress. The AFU zone of control expanded by more than 300 meters in the residential area. Heavy fighting is also underway around Belitske and Novye Donbass, but apart from Belitske itself, there are no significant changes there. Kostiantinivka direction. This is the main sector of the briefing. The climax is drawing ever closer. The AFU have only pockets of defense left in the city. There is no longer a systematic, coordinated defense, and that is exactly why encirclements keep forming. Over the past day, Russian assault units managed to advance 900 meters through the urban area into the northern part of the city. And here a third pocket is now taking shape within a month of fighting for Konstantinovka. The first was in the southern part and collapsed quickly. The second is in the center and is still being held under encirclement. And now there's a third. Some will object that the encirclement isn't complete. There's a corridor out. The corridor does exist, but with caveats. First, it's small, around 600 meters. Second, there's a river running through it. Even if they wanted to exit through this corridor, they'd have to swim across the river, so you can't measure the exit together with the river. The real stretch they could withdraw along is a narrow strip beside the road, barely about 100 meters. And it is, of course, swept by fire and controlled. The window to pull back into the northern part of the city was missed just a couple of days ago. Back then, withdrawal was still possible, now it isn't. Having pinned AFU troops in the multi-story residential blocks and the industrial zone, Russian assault units are now storming the northern part of Kostantinovka. And on both banks of the river. In the western part, fighting is underway around Novoselivka. In the eastern part, the Chervony micro-district is being stormed. The logic of what follows is this. The private sector housing in the north gets ground down, after which only the two pockets remain to deal with. Clear them, and the city passes under Russian army control. The central pocket, incidentally, has already begun to be cleared. This picture is corroborated by objective control footage as well. In the Krasny Horodok micro-district, Russian flags and an expansion of the zone of control to 400 meters in the south of the city have been recorded. In the historic center, an advance and an expansion of the zone of control to 600 meters, with a push into the adjacent private sector. In the north, in the Chervony micro-district, an advance through the private sector of up to a kilometer. Timeline. Some OSINT analysts claim the city's fate will be decided before the end of June, with only mop-up operations remaining. This is a forecast, not a confirmed fact. Over the remaining week of June, it most likely won't be wrapped up. In any case, even once the outskirts are reached, the city faces a lengthy clearing and demining effort, so a rapid transfer to full control shouldn't be expected. A realistic reference point is July. Lyman direction, Krasny Lyman. Here, as in Kostantinovka, everything is moving toward the finale. Progress is recorded almost daily. The AFU no longer have a coordinated defense, some troops are encircled, and some are trying to break out of the city. According to objective control footage from the southern part of the city, Russian forces advanced 350 meters in a multi-story residential block, taking a number of high-rise buildings. There has been a great deal of footage from this direction over recent days. In the private sector of the Centralny micro-district, flags have been raised and the zone of control expanded to 700 meters. Further on, another advance of about 800 meters. Forward positions near the railway tracks are under AFU fire, with Russian forces reaching the approaches to the railway station. A flag has been recorded in the industrial zone on the southern outskirts, a kilometer from the former zone of control, along with roughly another 800 meters of advance, as well as movement of Russian servicemen in the private sector of the Pivnichny micro-district, already a kilometer and a half from the zone of control. By many accounts, infiltration groups are operating. Russian forces are gradually entering the city and consolidating. This is tied to the fact that the crossings over the Siversky Donets have effectively been destroyed. The AFU have been left without supply, which is why taking Lyman looks like a matter of time. I'll note that pro-Ukrainian mapping resources paint a different picture here, but objective control footage from various parts of the city says otherwise. I'll make substantial corrections to the line of contact for this sector shortly. Vchansk direction. In Tikhonivka, a forward Russian position was shelled by the AFU. At the same time, Russian forces advanced more than 2 kilometers from the Siversky Donets, Donbas Canal, and took new positions in the eastern part. The settlement is being stormed. In Yurkivka, somewhat earlier footage, a flag has been raised, with an advance of up to 2 kilometers and a push to the western bank of the canal. Siversk direction. In Ry-Oleksandrivka, an advance of more than 2 kilometers in the residential area. At the same time, a forward position there came under AFU fire, and Russian forces expanded their zone of control by more than 300 meters and took new positions in the southern part. In the area of Kryva Luka and Piskunivka, a flag has been raised in the eastern part of Piskunivka, with an advance of 2.5 kilometers along the southern bank of the Siversky Donets. Kryva Luka is held by Russian forces with an advance south of Piskunivka and toward Mykolaivka. Borova direction, south of Zarizov, a flag has been raised, with the zone of control expanded by about a kilometer to the south. In Shaikivka, earlier footage, an advance of up to 4 kilometers, with new positions in the residential area that are being attacked by the AFU. Vchansk direction. On the left bank of the Oskil, Russian forces advanced in Kurilivka, and here AFU troops are now encircled as well. There's no longer an exit from the multi-story housing of the Kurilivka 1 microdistrict, with a corridor of only about 400 meters. The number encircled here is small, around 24 troops, nothing like Kostantinovka or Lyman, but the fact of encirclement stands. Over the past month, the Ukrainian army has been falling into such pockets regularly. What remains is to grind down the sector with the apartment blocks. After that, Kurilivka will pass under Russian control. I won't venture a timeline yet. The fighting for it has been hard. Adding to this same direction, in the north of Hlushkivka, flags have been raised, with an advance of up to 3 kilometers in the residential area. Hlushkivka is effectively under Russian control. Between Kovsharivka and Novusinove, an advance of up to a kilometer. In Podoli, Russian forces took new positions, expanding the zone of control to 800 meters. In Radkivka, movement of Russian servicemen has been recorded, with the zone of control expanded to 1.5 kilometers. Vchansk direction. There have been almost no significant changes over recent days, but the line is active. Near Kozacha Lopan, an advance, with reports of assault operations beginning. Per objective control footage, a forward Russian position in the northern part of Kozacha Lopan was shelled by the AFU, while Russian forces advanced 900 meters and took new positions in the residential area. The zone of control here is likely already wider than what's marked on the map. Sumy direction. In Ryazne, several episodes. Flag, Ryazne. The source material on this sector is internally contradictory. One fragment attributes the expansion of the zone of control in the residential area by 800 meters and new positions in the south to the AFU, while another attributes it to Russian forces, a forward position shelled by an AFU drone, after which Russian forces expand the zone of control. This looks like confusion in the source. Clarification is needed on whom to credit with the advance. In Kondrativka, a Russian position is under AFU fire, while Russian forces advanced up to 900 meters and recovered previously lost positions. As a reminder, Kondrativka was previously under full Russian control, after which the AFU counterattacked and drove Russian units out. The AFU also attempted to counterattack toward Kostantinovka on this direction, but without success. Russian forces are now gradually bringing Kondrativka back under control. Active fighting is also underway around Malokorchakivka, Krapovshchina, Zapsilia, and Miropilya. Strikes on rear areas. Over the past day, a Storm Shadow cruise missile was used against Voronezh. According to preliminary data, 5 people were killed, a working figure that may be revised. Daily summary. Formally, no settlement passed under Russian control. In terms of territory, the gain came to about 7.5 square kilometers. No AFU advance was recorded over the past day. The pace is modest, especially for a summer campaign. This year the tempo is noticeably weaker than last year's, but that is largely offset by the fact that major cities are being taken. That's all I have on the frontline situation for today. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. It really does help the channel. Until next time.